Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jordan with the Laundromat Resource Podcast. This is show number 58. And I'm super pumped you're here today because today we're talking with Steve Marcenetti, who is the president of CCI, which is Card Concepts, Inc. And they're the makers of Fast Card, Laundry Card. You are maybe familiar with some of these card payment systems. And we have an awesome interview because not only is he the president of CCI, but he also owns laundromats himself. And so we get to talk a little bit about those laundromats. We get to talk a little bit about card payment systems, how they can be beneficial, when you should consider getting one, who shouldn't consider getting one, and a whole lot more in this episode. A lot of really great tips. I took a lot of notes. I wrote down a bunch of quotes and I just had a blast getting to talk with Steve, and I learned a ton. I know you will too, and I cannot wait to get into it. But real quick, I want to just mention that the forums are still going super strong. So if you haven't been over there in a little bit, go check out the forums, laundromat-resource.com/forums. That link and all other links that will be discussed today will be available on the show notes, which will be at laundromat-resource.com/show 58, show 58. And also if you're on YouTube, it'll be down in the descriptions. All right, man, I'm super pumped about this interview with Steve. Really honored to have him on, and can't wait for you to hear this interview with him. I know you're going to get a lot out of it, so make sure you got something to write with because you might want to take some notes unless you're driving or exercising. Quick side note. A lot of you guys have told me that you listen to this podcast while exercising, or, riding bikes, going on jogs, and lifting. And just, I know I've mentioned this before, but man, go get it today, man. Do that extra rep. That's what I like to hear. All right. I just felt like I should just pump you up a little bit. All right. Well, after this quick message, we're going to jump into it with Steve Marcenetti, president of CCI Card Concepts, Inc. All right, guys. Today's episode is brought to you by Atmosphere TV. You may remember back in episode 34 when Atmosphere TV's Mike Kelly joined me on the podcast. It was an epic episode. If you haven't listened to it, show 34, laundromat-resource.com/show 34. Go check it out. It's incredible. A ton of value there. One of the things we talked about is just the importance of creating a good, positive atmosphere in your laundromat. And I was just rereading the book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And one of the things that really stands out to me is that people don't make purchase decisions based on, the logic of any decision that they're making to spend their money. It's more based on a feeling and an association. And so it's really important to create a positive feeling, a positive atmosphere, no pun intended, in your laundromat to help people associate this chore that most people don't like doing with something positive. Atmosphere TV is an incredible way to help improve the atmosphere of your laundromat. And basically, if you haven't heard of it, what it is it has 50 plus channels created specifically for businesses with everything from sports clips, hilarious fail videos, draw-dropping videos from all over the world. There's automobile channels. There's a ton of stuff. My kids love it, and my customers love it. Atmosphere TV can be a great way to either supplement your cable, or a lot of us laundromat owners are cutting our cable bill completely and running Atmosphere TV. They're designed to be used with no audio, but they also do have an audio option. That way you can kind of design the atmosphere of your laundromat the way that you want it. So get rid of cable, get rid of those news channels that are bringing negativity into your laundromat, and fill your laundromat with positive videos that bring positive vibes to your customers with Atmosphere TV. And if you use the code word, the keyword, the promo code, promo code resource, then they're going to waive your setup fee. And now everything is going to be free. There's no monthly fee for it. You can use it for free in your laundromat, and it's going to bring a positive vibe to your atmosphere. So check out atmosphere.tv. I'll put a link down in the description on YouTube or in the show notes. Check it out there. Make sure you use the keyword resource. That way you can get that thing for free. Or if you'd like, email Mike at mike.kelly@atmosphere.tv. All right, let's jump into it with Steve. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm super excited to hear your, 30 years of wisdom that's coming our way right now in this industry. Thanks for coming on, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, but I don't know if I feel as good anymore because it's not been quite 30 years. But if I look that old, then It looks like it's time to touch this white stuff up here.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, I'm super excited to have you on and just hear your wisdom from this industry. I know you're coming from a pretty unique perspective that we haven't heard from yet on the podcast. So I'm excited. But before we jump into that, why don't you tell people who you are and how many years you do have in this industry?
Sure. Well, thanks, Jordan. I appreciate including us in this. This is interesting times, and it's great to communicate this way. So, yeah, I'm Steve Marcenetti. I'm the president of CCI, Card Concepts. For those who don't know what that stands for, we're a payment systems manufacturer. We like to think of ourselves a little more than that. But I've been in the industry for 22 years, so not quite 30 yet, but working my way there. But CCI has been around for 21 of those years. And yeah, we come from an interesting perspective, I guess. And that's something that kind of sets me apart, I guess, a little bit from some of others, is that we are store owners. My family's been in the laundromat business for 50 years, certainly before I was involved in it. But we own stores in the Chicagoland area as a family and manage those. We also have a distribution business. So, those who buy laundry equipment are familiar with the distribution model. We have a distribution company that runs locally here and services this area. And then in 2000, we saw essentially an opportunity in the payments area. This is obviously a long time ago. People weren't quite thinking about alternative payments as much as they are today. And so, my background prior to getting in the laundry business was in more of an IT background. And as a family that was building stores for investors as a distributor, we were essentially selling other payment systems. There were other payment systems on the market. And we just saw an opportunity. My background in IT, I saw that it seemed like there was something missing. Primarily, it was reliability and support, some of the things that kind of give a lot of opportunity out there. And we decided to look at building our own products. And so that started CCI and got us into the manufacturing side of business. So, fast forward, like I said, 21 years and over 2,000 locations with our product. It must be working. We're still putting them out there. But that's it. So, it's kind of nice because people who buy our products, they typically can tell that it came from a laundry operator, because pretty much everything that we do is tested in our own laundries before we ship it out to anybody else. So, having the distribution experience, the store owner experience, and then obviously the manufacturing side just kind of rounds us out. We pretty much we're big proponent to the CLA, and it's difficult to choose what category I'm in. I'm on the board of directors now, actually. I'm in my 6th year on the national board of directors. I am in as a manufacturer, but in all fairness, I could probably go in any category.
Yeah. So, okay. How many years have you owned laundromats?
So, the family, my father owned laundries for years prior. Then it was a bit of a gap. And then we have now owned as a family owned stores for about 10 years. Okay. I think that's the oldest one is about that. And we're still, investing in new locations and things. We're not super aggressive about it. It's got to be the right spot, just like anybody. Mm-hmm. But we're confident. I really love this industry. Frankly, it's provided myself and my family, every opportunity that we could think of. And so, it's, we believe in it, we're willing to invest in it. I mean, not just ask people to buy our products, but we're willing to invest in it as well. So, yeah.
Well, how many years have you been in distribution?
21 years, 22 years. Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah.
I mean, here's the reality of the situation is that I undersold your experience. If we're going to add these
okay.
up, man, I mean, you're talking like 50 years of experience. If you count all
I don't know. It could time served if you kind of just add it all on. Yeah, I guess it really starts to add up.
That's my mistake. I undersold your experience here. The wisdom we're about to receive from you.
Yeah,
that's
right.
very cool that you're like all up in everything from, distribution to the tech side of things with the payment system to owner operator side of things to on the CLA board. I mean, you're in the thick of it. I'm
in. I went in both feet in, and I love it. I do like it a lot, and it's it's exciting for my family. I've got a couple of kids, and my son's in college now, and he sees a future there. And typically, young people. I mean, maybe this is my perspective. They don't look at the laundry business as being real exciting. You know what I mean? It's not the industry that's real sexy that people in college want to go in, but he sees it differently. I mean, he sees how well you can do if you work hard. And this is an industry that certainly has a good return if you work hard and you do things right. And so it's a great role model for young people that want to get interested. And I find it exciting because we need more young people, frankly, to get involved in this. And there's a lot of people who've been doing a lot of years, me included. I'm not ready to let go yet, but we need young people to get involved because this industry isn't going anywhere. We're going to be needing to wash clothes for a long time.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's interesting because, just as I was hearing you talk about your experience, your nearly 50 years of collective experience. No, but your experience and, as you were saying, I think people weren't thinking about payment systems the same way when you kind of started 21 years ago or whatever. And then saying, hey, we need more new people, coming into this industry, bringing fresh perspectives. So I'm curious as to, what changes have you seen, in the industry over these years, the last 20 so years that you've been in here? Because I'm sure there's been quite a few changes. And then just to prep your mind, I want to ask you what changes you see coming down the pipeline. But let's talk about the past.
Sure. We've seen a lot. And I guess to put it in perspective of our payment side, something that's been interesting is 20 years ago, people didn't really know much about alternative payment. And so we were continually struggling with just getting people to accept the idea that you didn't have to accept only quarters or to potentially think about eliminating quarters. And so I think the one thing that's been good and bad for us over the last 20 years is there's been a lot more exposure. There's a lot more options now that haven't always been there. And so now people aren't necessarily asking, or questioning whether they should eliminate coin. It's more about, there's a lot more legitimacy into considering how to run your business differently. And we're not here to tell you that coins are the wrong way. We have, we run coins in one of our stores and, it's there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of things you have to think about when you're thinking about payment, but people are way more willing to consider something different than quarters alone, certainly. And many of them are looking to eliminate coins, and there's a lot of benefits to that. But so I think just over the years, just a better mindset on it. I think from that perspective, for sure. I think from a store ownership perspective, I've noticed, early on, it seemed like, from our distribution side, it seemed like we were building stores for the same guys that have owned stores forever, and they were adding another location, and they're great people and operators. But what I've seen is, particularly as the years have gone on, is a new generation of owner operator, investor. I'm going to call them investor now, not even as much owner operator, although they need to be, but they're willing to invest in an industry that has a lot of stability. I think a great example in, we're all coming out of this pandemic, and just the stability that I think laundries were able to kind of maintain their business. Obviously we had some struggles in some points, but in some areas more than others, but it's opened the eyes up to people who are looking for a way to invest money, and laundromats is a way that's attractive. So, it's opened up more people to consider our industry as a viable way to diversify their funds. And I think that's good, because those investors come with fresh eyes and fresh minds, and they want to do things that are right by the customer, and they have new perspectives. I think all of us that have been doing this for a long time, we can all get in our own habits. We get into ruts and we don't see the forest through the trees, or the trees through the forest. And, it takes fresh minds to kind of wake us up a little bit and make sure that we're not forgetting about what's important and trying new things. So I've seen a lot of things being tried just from fresh eyes being there. So that's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right on about that. And it's one of the coolest things for me, just personally and selfishly, is doing this podcast, is hearing, and I've said this multiple times in the past, but like, this is a very simple business, right? But there are so many different ways that people are running this business successfully, that it's very surprising to me. Right. And so we had a guy, Tom Donnelly, on a few episodes ago, and he lived out here in California, and he partnered with another investor, and they bought a laundromat in Atlanta, or outside of Atlanta, sight unseen. He's never seen it. Wow. And, and that's just a, crazy way to do. And we
possibility.
Had, Thomas Landenberger, who lives in, the Italian countryside, and he owns some laundromats in Italy, but he also owns laundromats in Florida. Right. Wow. And so it's there's a whole lot of different ways, and there's people who are succeeding, like the Willafords, who own 1,000 million, laundromats, but they're all self-serve laundromats. Right. And then there's guys like Rick Rome, who shut down his self-serve laundromat to do only pickup and delivery. And there's so much variety and so many different ways of doing this, that I think hearing about that, for me at least, has really opened my eyes to, okay, how do I want to run my business? Cause when I got in this industry, I thought, okay, well, it's going to be a self-serve business. I didn't even think that, because that's just what I assumed. Right. And it's going to be, I'm going to put new equipment in there. I'm going to keep things clean, and the machine's running, and it's going to be good to go. Right. And that is a way to run the business. But it's not the only way by any means. So it's, that fresh eyes is.
It's interesting you say that, because, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but in some of the stores we own, there's one location that we've owned for close to 10 years. I've never been there.
That's awesome.
And now I know what it looks like, because you have the camera systems, and we have the payment side, so I'm very aware of its business and what it does. But there is a way to build a model where you can remotely operate, and I guess that's really the interesting part, and certainly some of the technology helps with that, in aiding in that. But yeah, it's possible. It is, and we're seeing a lot of that. So we'll see. It opens up opportunities for people who never thought this industry was for them.
Yeah. And I think technology like yours, the payment systems like that allow for a lot of those new opportunities, and kind of, they don't force owners to think about that. But if you don't start thinking about some of those things, you're at risk of getting left behind, with the industry, because the industry has been like molasses changing for a long time. And now more recently, the pace has been picking up a lot more, and we're playing catch up in a lot of ways to the rest of society, but we're playing catch up a lot quicker than in the past.
Yeah. And I think part of it is, to add on to that, you asked about, well, what changes do you see coming? And it's already started, is that there's so much more confidence, I think, in our industry, that it's allowing people to interested in investing a lot more than they might have considered before. You're seeing a lot of acquisitions of distribution businesses. You're seeing franchises, come out from everywhere, and whether you have an opinion, whether you like the acquisitions, happening, or you like all these franchise, deals coming out, what it should tell you as an investor is just the legitimacy of this industry, and that it's stable, not going anywhere, and people with real money are willing to invest in it, and that it's not going anywhere. So, that's where I see that happening more. I think we're going to see more and more of that going on. I don't have a strong opinion whether it's good or bad or industry. I just think it's going to change. I think that the way that all of us do business is going to change a bit. And as you said, you either have to be willing to make those changes and adapt, or you might get left behind. And so people are going to have to make decisions. But at the end of the day, people still have to do laundry. Yep. And as long as they still have to do laundry, we're all going to still have an opportunity in this business.
Yep. That is right. That is right on. And I love, I love that you say you don't have an opinion, good or bad. I kind of think that's a fruitless opinion to create in a lot of ways, because, it's like trying to stop a train. You're just you're just not going to be able to stop it. So you might as well get on board one way or another, or figure out how to work with that or within the new changes, because they're coming, right? And they're happening now.
Yeah. Listen, it's going to be one of these deals where, like you said, you can't stop it. And and usually the reason why you would want to stop it is because you're in one of your ruts, probably. Yep. I talked about, we doing this a long time, and I'm certainly guilty of it. I've been doing things a long time the same way, and it forces us all to rethink what we're doing. And this is just another example of us kind of being forced to rethink what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is right on. And it's hard too. I mean, when you've been doing things, like, I'm empathetic to that, right? You've been doing things a long way. It's been working really well. And all of a sudden, things are changing, and you've been pretty comfortable for a while, and it gets uncomfortable when things change and you have to adapt. And so I'm empathetic to that. But at the same time, if you don't, then you do risk getting left behind. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Any other changes you see coming down the pipeline for our industry?
Oh gosh, we could probably talk about a lot of them, but no, I think, that all of it ties into that to some degree. I think it all, when you talk about larger players being interested in distribution, when you talk about larger players wanting to distribute laundromats, literally become franchise ors, then you're going to see lots of changes from the operational perspective. Again, it's probably cliche at this point, but the full service side of business is really amazing to me. It's actually quite foreign. We've always, as a family and a business, been quite focused on the self-service side of things. I think you alluded to that, early on too. And we are good self-service operators, and we're just average to less than average full service providers, but we know it's an opportunity too. And again, some of it is bandwidth. If you're willing to put the effort into it, then you can make something have of it. And to some degree, we have to make time if we want that to be a part of it. But there's an attractive nature to the self-service industry that I like, because we are so busy that those stores can run in a self-service mode without us having to be there every moment. Not that we don't have a presence there, but the full service side of things is a different. It's like, to me, it's like almost like opening up a dry cleaner, where you've got to be really focused on the customer, and there's a quality concern, and there's complaints, and there's loss and things like that are very profitable if you decide to get into that, but you have to be willing to put that energy into it. And so I think we're going to see more and more of that happening. I think we're becoming a society that likes things done for us, and we're willing to pay for it. And so I don't see that changing, but at the same time, I'm not bearish on the idea that self-service laundries are going anywhere either. I think that there's going to be lots of people who will want to do it themselves, whether it's they can't afford it or they just don't want other people touching their stuff. And I think that there's a lot of that still in that. And it's okay. Totally. I don't think I could convince my wife to drop off our laundry somewhere else, not because she loves doing laundry, but she cares about her stuff in a way that would be very difficult, I think, for a retailer to sell her on the idea that it would be cared for in the same way she would do it. And it's not a downplay on any laundry operator. It's just mentality. Personal but as the younger group gets older and they have the money to afford that, like my son, he certainly couldn't afford to do that today, but as he gets older, he probably thinks very differently about that than others. So it'll be interesting to see that play out. And obviously there's tons of providers and, trying to show how to run that side of your business. So it should be something exciting for self-service owners as well, because that's a profit opportunity if you so choose to go at it, that you can take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think not only do we need to look at what's going on in our industry, but I think we need to look at what's going on in society as a whole, and, the outsourcing culture is, I think, only going to grow. So like you're saying, the full service side of things is definitely an opportunity for growth. And a lot of that has to do with, one, laundry is like the worst thing in the world to do for a lot of people. But two, people are buying time and convenience back with their money. And that's going on all over the place now, from, DoorDash and Uber Eats and also the gig culture could provide opportunities for people. Like we've had a couple people on the podcast, Nikila and Mark Vlaskamp, who both started pickup and delivery businesses before neither one of them still has a laundromat.
Sure.
Mark's buying some laundromats now, but, kind of doing it backwards. And that's sort of part of that gig culture where you don't necessarily even have to have a laundromat to start a laundry service business. So there's, again, a lot of opportunities. And if you have your eye on culture and where it's going and how people are thinking, and more importantly, how people are behaving, and you can tap into that, then there's a lot of opportunity there. So,
totally agree.
Well, okay. So, let's go back to all of your vast, many, many decades of experience collectively. I'm curious, and especially, I guess, from your payment system side of things, and maybe the distribution side of things, and maybe even the CLA side of things, what are you seeing successful owners do that, maybe struggling owners, or maybe just your run-of-the-mill owners are doing? What are successful owners doing differently or better?
Yeah, I think, and it's going to probably sound a little simple, but it's not forget about the core customer, and we talk about some of those habits that we get ourselves caught into. I think it's one of the reasons, some of the habits that are out there have attributed to some degree our industry not always getting the best reputation. And I think we're all working hard, and this is a good example of trying to elevate all of that. And I know a lot of the people that you have on your show talk about trying to elevate our industry, and just try to get a better, get some of the stigma associated with it. And some of those habits are the reasons why some operators struggle. And I think some of it is not having the right concern for the customer, the guy that actually puts the coins in the machine or swipes their card on the card reader, whatever it is, and realizing that without him, nothing matters. And without him there, without him being happy, without him coming back every week, that family doesn't show up every Saturday morning. None of this works. And so whatever you can do to make sure that customer is happy is got to be looked at. And it's simple things. Think about it. Most people just want to be left alone when they go do laundry. And so one, let's not get in the way of that. And I think that to some degree, we can easily get in the way of that by having lots of rules and having lots of things going on in the store and directing them to things. Let them do their laundry the way they want to. And I think that operators that have kind of embraced the idea of that, they do very well. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I would say, if I had an opinion, and again, I'm thinking way ahead of the game, is that we have a lot of these, franchise groups that are coming in and operating, and they all, I think, have very good intentions and likely have good operational ideas, but the root of that's going to have to come back to the customer. Mm-hmm. And if you can't execute on the customer, they're going to struggle. Just like it doesn't matter because it says, Steve's Superwash Laundry and they own 20 locations. If it's a terrible experience inside the store or it's not convenient, then it doesn't matter. And so, people always call laundromats kind of a mom and pop business. It's always kind of had that mentality. And the reason why is because mom and pops typically could have done a really nice job because they greeted their customers. They got to know them a little bit. They cleaned incessantly. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we can do a lot of fancy things, but if we don't remember those core values of, cleanliness is what we hear all about. Mm-hmm. Value certainly is an important part of that. And value doesn't always mean less price. And just being convenient. We're a convenient business. I think you mentioned that already. And if we forget that we're all about convenience, we're going to struggle.
Mm.
And I think that goes right into the owners that are there. They aren't thinking along those lines as much as they would. And the good news is that generally they can change. That's not something you have to, that's not something you actively choose. Sometimes you don't know that you're doing that. So I think paying attention, I think that's really what it comes down to, and not being afraid to give a free wash once in a while because it's the right thing to do when you see a family in there and you see them in there every week and you're like, you know what, this one's on me. You guys are great. Love to see you. How are the kids, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. There's that personal element that, think about how many retail businesses don't have that anymore, because we've become big box type things. And, so I think that's the difference between successful owners and not successful owners.
Yeah. And I love that because laundromats really have an opportunity to be a community gathering place. So where better to have that great kind of personal feel, that personal touch, that care and concern than in a community gathering place. That's also your business, right? Like a place where people go to do something that most people feel, at the very least, is not their favorite thing in the world to do. At the worst, they hate it. Right. But if you can come and make it feel like, okay, well, I got to go do my laundry, but at least I'll go get to see Steve or Steve's attendant who's going to greet me with a smile, or we can talk about my kids. I know they're going to ask about my kid, or whatever the case may be. Right. Make it a little more of just a better experience for your customers. And I love, what you're saying is, putting I wrote down a couple of quotes that will probably pop up on Instagram or something at some point in time. But I mean, you said without the guy who puts the quarter in your machines, our business doesn't work. Right. And you said, you can't execute on a customer's like needs and wants, then you're going to struggle as a business owner. And I think right on the head. And it's really easy to get focused on wanting to, keep things status quo, not have to put a ton of effort in and just let things coast. Right. And you can to an extent, but if you do that too much or too long, you'll start to see a drop off in your business because, that personal touch, it helps. It goes a long way. So
Sure.
Awesome advice to help people, be successful owners and not just average, not just, struggling. Cool. Okay. Well, let me shift a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about card payment systems and what are, from your, obviously we'll just acknowledge that you have a biased perspective, but what are your, what would you say to a coin owner? What are the benefits of putting in a card payment system into your store?
Sure. And obviously I am biased and I think we have a great solution, but the reality is that, there's a benefit to at least supplementing coin, and I think there's two ways to look at it nowadays. There are really two solutions out there. You can eliminate coin, and there's a whole bunch of benefits there. And some people think, well, they're very owner focused, and not customer focused. I somewhat disagree with that. But then there's the other solution, which is a hybrid, which is keep taking coins, but also offer everything. Right. And so I kind of have to take a step back and make sure that we look at both products uniquely.
Real quick.
Solutions. Yeah.
Not sorry to interrupt you, but I always say, hey, if you're going to go the hybrid system, put it in a hybrid system and then incentivize the card system.
Sure.
Because not only is that going to be better for you and easier to run your business, but there's a lot of perks you can do for customers with the card system that you either can't do or are very difficult and cumbersome to do with a coin payment system. So,
and you would be surprised too, because I think that the biggest, argument that, a store owner makes about going coinless is that he feels he's going to alienate some of his customers, and nobody's afraid. Nobody's going to lose any customers. And we don't either. I mean, we're an operator. Totally. We certainly aren't interested in that either. But, I can tell you from firsthand experience, we have a store, it's close to our office here. That's a hybrid store. It's coin and card. And that store is 80% card. I mean, and that's not, the customers elect that 80% of the transactions in that store are going to be card. And in truth, I would imagine that the 20% remaining, or majority of that 20% remaining, would go to card if we just gave them a little more reason to. But they elect to go that route. So, the argument that says that it's only owner benefiting, the card side of it, is not true. Think about how big laundry equipment has gotten just in the 20 years I've gotten here. I mean, we have 130-pound machines in some of these stores now. I mean, what is that vent for? $19, $20 a cycle. I mean, how do you put quarters in that? That's not even an option. That's not, you can't even do it. It would take you 10 minutes to start the machine that way. So, and of course there's dollar coin options and tokens. There's all kinds of things that people can do. But the reality is when we talk about this being a convenience business, how convenient is it to just be able to swipe your card, whether it's a loyalty card or a credit or debit card? That's convenient. I mean, I would argue that's even more convenient than putting coins in a machine that's even $5. So, we can't forget that, and that is one of the benefits. Is it's not just store owner benefit, because obviously you don't have to collect the coins. That's great. There's less coins to collect, or no coins to collect, depending on the solution. But customers don't necessarily love carrying quarters around or leaving with $3 or $4 in quarters that they're going to save for next week or find another way to get to them. So, the coin side of things are there. I think there's equal benefit on both sides. Beyond that, I think, the benefits start to come into really more from a business sense. And you think about every other business or retail place you go to, I don't care if it's at Walmart or Sam's Club or whatever, nobody charges a vend price, whether you're selling a pack of gum or a couch, that ends in 0 or 25, Right. And the fact that we have historically been so connected to the quarter has really limited our ability to get a fair vend price for our machines, and to really adjust with the changing of our utilities. I mean, my dad taught me a long time, my brother and I, that we're a utility business. I'm sure you've heard this before. Laundromats are often referred to as utility businesses, but unfortunately, we can't buy gas, water, and electricity at a rate that's never going to change. It's going to change always. Here in Chicago, we've got lots of water available to us, and our water has historically been fairly easy to get and inexpensive, or relatively, but that's changing in a hurry. That they're really spiking that. How do you adjust a quarter machine to appropriately adjust for a 5% increase in something, or an 8% increase? And to a lot of degrees, I think that some of the poor stigma that we have in our industry comes from store owners that have been unwilling to make vend price adjustments, because as their costs have increased, one of the things that store owners have been lacking in doing is increasing their vend prices, just historically, not everybody, but if you don't do that, then you can't do the things that are right by your customer, which are keep it clean, keep it operating, do all the things that we talked about before, because you're not charging enough. You got in this business because it made a nice return, and it was a fair return. It was all fair. And now all of a sudden your costs have gone up, your profits have gone down, and you start to have a negative feeling about our industry and things start to slip. And then, years go by, and all of a sudden you have, what's the term now? Zombie mat, right? So now we end up with a zombie mat because we didn't take care of it. And I think card systems can play a big role in offsetting that, because if you can adjust your vend price by 5%, 3%, 8% to adjust for those changes, you're making the margin that's appropriate. And quite frankly, your customers are accustomed to changes in price. And, the story that I say all the time, or that I make for people to try to prove this point, is that you go into a grocery store and buy a gallon of milk. I could go and buy that milk for $3 this week, and I put it in my cart and I drive off, and I come back next week and that milk's $3.15, just in 1 week's period. I don't think twice. I still grab the milk. I put it in my cart and I say, I know things go up and down. We drive up and down gas stations all the time, and they change every day. The price of gas changes, right? It's not because the gas in that tank or in the ground is more expensive. It's just everything goes up and down in price. and so what some laundromat owners will do is that they'll say, well, I'll just reduce the service. Dryers are the easiest way to do that. They'll cut the time, they'll reduce the temperature, or on a washer, they'll drop a cycle, they'll drop a rinse or something, instead of raising the price. And I would argue that, well, if I went to the grocery and I bought that gallon of milk and it was only full 75% of the way, it was still $3, I would not buy that milk. I would go find a full gallon of milk, and, so the idea that, that retail customers won't adjust to an appropriate fair vend price adjustment because our costs change is not realistic. They do it every day. They buy that way, or they understand that. And, having a payment system in place gives you that capability. And it's really important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a pretty compelling argument, because I hear all the time, and I feel this myself too, right? Like the price increases that you have to make in order to kind of adjust for the cost. It can be difficult to make those adjustments, especially over time. If you have to, raise your prices by, 50 cents or $1 or whatever, it feels uncomfortable to do that. Whereas if you can make, 10 or 15 cent changes, increases a few times throughout the year, that feels a lot more manageable, both probably to the owner, a little more comfortable, and also to the customers as they kind of adjust with you. So I like that.
The perspective also changes as well. And that kind of ties perfectly into what you just said, is this kind of comfort level. Mm-hmm. And laundry is a lot about perspective. It's convenience and customer's perspective, because, we all talk about, my 40-pound washers are doing this and my 50s are doing that. But do you think any of our customers know what a 40-pound washer is, or a 30? They have no idea.
I don't.
They stick their head in the tub and they're like, my stuff will fit in there. And it seems like that's worth $3 or whatever the vend is. Right.
Right.
And, when you raise the price in a quarter store from, let's say, $4 to $4.50, I would imagine most of them are not counting the price. They're counting the coins. Mm-hmm. And so when they get to that, normally it's, 27 quarters to start this machine. All of a sudden it's 30 quarters to start this machine. That there's a perception that this got expensive, that this is more money. But, card systems help kind of mitigate that perspective, because it was the same push pull of a card or the same swipe of the card last week as this week, but it was 8 cents more this week. Mm-hmm. And the net effect, if the cycles were all 8 cents more, that customer might have paid 80 cents more for their laundry that week. And I don't think that we would have a lot of argument from our customers if, because our prices changed by 80 cents one week, that they would give us a hard time. And I think it's all about perspective. Yeah. So that's the other benefit.
Yeah. That makes a good point. And you can just learn a lesson from Chuck E. Cheese, because we used to go to Chuck E. Cheese all the time and give our kids a few coins, and it would last like a long time, because there's a little bit of reluctance to put that quarter in, because once it's in there, it's gone. But they switched to the cards. Yeah. And now that card gets drained real quick. So we stopped going to Chuck E. Cheese so much, man. It got expensive. So learn a lesson from Chuck E. Cheese and make it easy. Again, kind of going back to the convenience, but also the perception. I think that's pretty compelling. You mentioned earlier, and I wrote this down to ask you, and I didn't want to forget. You mentioned earlier that, there's certain things to consider when regarding whether you should add a card payment system to your store or not. It may be a good fit, it may not be a good fit. I'm just curious, do you have some things that you feel like owners should consider when they're considering adding a payment, card payment system to their store? Because they're typically not cheap, right? To add. So it is an investment that you're making in your store. So how do you know whether that's a good thing or not to do?
Sure. And I think, to be fair and if you have a store that's struggling, I am not going to hear and tell you that a card system is going to fix that. That a good store is a good store. A bad store is likely a bad store. It doesn't mean that you can't do things to make improvements, but a card system isn't singularly going to change your world. Now, at least from a perspective, is it a good store or a bad store? I've certainly seen people whose worlds have changed because they put a payment system in and it's made their lives easier, particularly multi-store operators that are like, I can't collect any more coins. I'm chasing like crazy. And they, this is just gives them their life back. And I think, there's something to be said for that. But is it a fit for everybody? It's not a fit for everybody. I would say that before there were hybrid systems, the systems now that can allow you to take credit card right out the machine. We used to say that if you're in a real transient, like vacation type area where, your customers are a lot of vacationers and they're only there for a short time, you might struggle with trying to convince them they had to buy a card. They were only going to do laundry there for 2 weeks and they're going home, But since we're starting to take credit cards direct to the machine, that actually is almost better for them because they don't need to go look for quarters or they go to the change machine. They can they're using their credit card for anything, anyway, we go that route anyway. So I think it really comes down to looking at the demographic a bit. Again, because I'm biased, I think there's most places can do it. I think where it doesn't work is when the store owner just can't get their mind off of the fact that there's no quarters anymore. And usually that has to be a problem with their business model. And there's no gentle way to say this, but people love our business because it's a cash business. Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of eyes that people feel that a card system adds to their business that they may not be looking for. I argue that's not necessarily true. Nobody knows how you run your business. When I file my taxes, I don't give them a list of all the hardware that I use to keep track of my books. I just submit my taxes, like anyone else. And I think that's the same is true with this, but it's not a good fit for those operators. I think that just, can't see the value in that. And that's okay because, it'll either come around or that store will flip. And there'll be other opportunities there, but I think you have to think about vacation spots and things like that. Demographically, I've seen it work everywhere, but we've gotten to the point now where there's so many options available. If you can't find one that fits, it's just you're not ready. And being a salesman for a long time, you learn that you can't really sell anybody anything. They've got to want to buy it. You're just trying to get them to look at what you're doing and show them the value that you bring to the table. So if they're not ready, then that store's not ready to go card.
Yeah. I think that's really good input. Let me ask you specifically, because I get this question a lot. What about in lower income areas? I think there's some concern about, from people who are operating in lower income areas, like, lower income areas, and I think there's some concern about using a card system in those areas. What have you seen? Have you seen it work in those areas? How well does it work in those areas? Or is that an exception where maybe it doesn't work as well? I'm curious what you think.
I think it depends on the operator and what they're willing to do. And what I mean by that is, first of all, laundromats. There are no laundromats in Beverly Hills, unless you tell me. You're closer than I am, but there's probably not a lot of laundromats and laundromats are typically more successful in those demographics. That's just the business that we're in. Mm-hmm. And it's all about value. I already talked before, it's really about value. And I would say that in those low income areas, I would argue that they're probably the same demographic that are always looking for a coupon because they're looking to get best value when they go to the grocery or when they have to buy something. They're looking for, how do I save some money, and that's where a card system can really benefit a demographic like that, because in a coin store, how do you, unless you're just going to lower all your prices, how do you offer a value proposition in a form of maybe a coupon? What I mean? We have coupon programs in our products that allow you to attract that type of customer and give them more value. Say, hey, if you're willing to use a card, we'll save you money. And it's as easy as that. And who doesn't want to save money, and especially in those areas that you describe, they probably need to save money. And so as an owner operator, how are you fulfilling that need where they need to find a way to save value? And if it means that they got to put $10 on their card to get an extra $1, save them 10%, that's a pretty good reward right there, getting 10% off on your laundry. And what you've done there is you've bought a little loyalty from that customer. And in return, you've given them a discount, and there's lots of examples of other programs that you can, you can turn on and off and give your customers that value. And you have to look at your area to see what makes sense. But even in those I've seen it in the worst neighborhoods. Let's just call it what it is. We call them tough neighborhoods. it works. There's a safety concern there too. You know what I mean? Something that I noticed in one of the first stores that we put it, and this is going back 20 years ago, in a really kind of rough neighborhood, was as soon as people understood what it was, because there was a little bit of a learning curve 20 years ago, consumers weren't quite sure what this was. But when they realized what it was, we saw people leveraging as a budgeting tool. They walk into a store, I mean, not kidding, put $50 in the machine and then leave the store. And you're like, they didn't have any laundry with them? Nope. It was the first of the month. They had just gotten their money and they wanted to make sure that $50 was there for the whole month.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the way I budget, but some people need that simplistic idea that this card has got my $50 worth of laundry on it and it ain't going anywhere else and it's staying in my wallet until it's time to do laundry. So, that's just an example of, maybe some of the mentality that we deal with there.
Real quick. I mean, that made me think, that's an awesome opportunity to incentivize that even, right? And like, hey, for the first 2 or 3 days of the month, if you put $50 in, we're going to give you another $5 or $10 or, just kind of incentivizing that. And that not only will probably help them, if they're having trouble hanging on to money, that'll incentivize them to, it's almost like the forced savings, for put aside for the chore. But it also, it'll help them and it'll give you that money up front to be able to do more things for your customers and for your business with. So that could be a big win-win. So
absolutely.
I love the promotional possibilities and just ways to incentivize customers. And I think, incremental pricing is, it can be, that can be even a promotion in and of itself, where instead of raising a quarter, you're raising the 8 cents or whatever. But being able to, gift people money on their cards or incentivize them to put a certain amount on and give them, or however it works, or keeping track of how many washes are being used and giving, free washes, stuff like that. So
yeah.
I love that. And that stuff, some of that is possible if you're using coins, but man, when I first bought my laundromat, I tried doing that where it was like, we had punch cards and my attendants were giving out blue quarters to I was like, oh, this is horrible. I'm not doing this anymore ever again. It was just a nightmare.
Yeah. The benefits of that from a promotional perspective are unlimited. And we could have a whole show, just all the ideas. In fact, it's something that we're trying to do is like get people's minds together, because we provide a lot of tools I like to describe, but people, the way they use those tools just varies across locations. And so it's really unlimited. And the ideas that, creative store owners can come up with to capitalize on the benefits of having just some alternate payment option, and being able to turn it into a card or an app or whatever the case may be. There's a lot you can do.
Can you spit a couple of promotions that you've seen out? That
I've seen some really cool stuff. I mean, one of the things that I'll tell you something that works really well. This isn't, I don't know if it's a secret because I tell it all the time now, but here when we open stores, whether it's for us or if it's an investor, and as you might imagine, we use our payment technology in those stores, is that we will, instead of doing something like, we always see a lot of stores open, they go like half price wash. That's a very common grand opening type of special. Well, a number of years ago, there's some problems with that in our eyes. One is that, you're advertising a price that you can't maintain. And there's a bit of a negativity surrounding the idea that the price is going to go up eventually. And you're like, oh, this used to be a great place to do laundry. And then the prices went up, and which is, well, they went up to reality is what they went up to. It can't be half price forever. Yeah. And so what we did to try to offer something of similar value, but didn't necessarily have a negative impact, is we did something called double your money. And, it's basically a variation of, put $20 in your card and get a 10% return. You'll get $2 a bonus added to your card, but taking it at the way ahead of that, put $20 in your card, get $20 in bonus, so now you got 40 on your card, or, and talk about people putting money on their card and leaving. we'll run that promotion for 2 weeks. We have people come with $50 bills, $100 bills, putting literally $200 at a time on their card in order to take advantage of that promotion. And all along that, the then prices on the machine are what you had. They're at the top. They're at right where you wanted to be when you open. It's where all your performas were built on. So your customers are absolutely, they actually don't care about your vend price at that time because they got so much money stashed up on their cards that the perception of the vend price is almost irrelevant. And more importantly, what that does is it's a reason to return. We call these loyalty card systems for a reason. You pay in advance so that you're loyal to return, right? And the other thing that we don't talk about enough is the fact that laundromats don't make anything. We just divert where they used to do their laundry. They were doing laundry somewhere before you opened. And so it's about getting them to do laundry with you, not with where they were doing it. And laundry is also a very habit. My wife always does her laundry on Mondays. That's the day she does laundry. You can't convince her to do it other days. And I would imagine there's a lot of that goes on. Not to mention what laundry you go to every week if you're using a laundry, and the route you go to drive to that laundry is the same every week. And there's a lot of habits involved in that. And I don't know the specifics, but there's a lot of studies out there about how many times do you have to change the way you do something for that to become your new habit. It's like 7 times you got to do it another way before that becomes your new habit. And I don't remember the exact number, but it's something in that ballpark. How better of a way to get customers to use your laundry as an alternative to where they used to go by giving this massive bonus on their card. If they put $200 in value on their card, that's going to take them 5, 6, 7 trips to spend that. And what are they doing beyond getting a great value? They're changing their habit. Their habit is now shifted, and now that's your laundry of choice. And again, that's a good example of a promo that was really designed to give somebody, 10% back when they put 20 on their card. And somebody got really creative with it and said, let's just blow it out of control. Let's just give them double their money instead of giving them half price wash. It has almost a more powerful selling effect in the window of your store, on the signs on the street. But at the same time, the value is enormous to the store owner as well. So that was a big one. There's coupon programs to give people like free dry credits. There's things that you can do to give people rewards for wash points, kind of like a frequent flyer program. And that's all about giving your best customers the best value for being loyal and returning. We have some programs that allow you to turn like points into physical prizes. So you talked about Chuck E. Cheese. What did they get after they played the game? They got tickets that came spitting out of the machine, and then you'd go up to the counter and you'd turn in this 300,000 tickets to get a magic eraser, shaped like a dinosaur. We do things like that too, where you can get points, and then those points turn into prizes, so it could be gift cards for the grocery store or a restaurant, or, in our stores, we have a Amazon Fire tablet as one of the prizes. It takes a while to get to it, but you can work your way up to it. And surprisingly, we probably give away, 7 or 8 tablets a year, in that program. So it's really up to your imagination how you want to, take advantage of these. They're just tools, but there's lots of great ideas out there.
Yeah. I love those ideas. A lot of fun. And I love that Chuck E. Cheese has come up twice in this podcast. Yeah. Well, I love that. And I think that there's a lot of benefits to the card system. And I think that there's a lot of potential to create a lot of value. Like you've mentioned, like has been mentioned a lot on here, what we need to be trying to do is creating value for our customers. And utilizing whatever tools, it doesn't have to be a card system, but whatever tools we can, including, training our employees well, and keeping things clean, thinking about the flow of your store so people aren't getting clogged up. All that stuff creates value for your customers, but this can be another tool that an owner can use to create that value for customers. So absolutely. I love that. I'm going to put you slightly on the spot, not totally, but slightly on the spot. I forgot to prep you on this, but you know what? If you don't got anything, you don't got anything. So we have a section called Secret Sauce, and we've talked about so many secret sauces. And you just even mentioned one that you're like, I'm not sure if it's secret sauce or not. So maybe you just want to repeat that one. I don't know. Maybe it is your secret sauce, but secret sauce, our section secret sauce is for, hey, what's something owners can do in their laundromats that might benefit them, help them improve their business, or themselves personally even. And maybe it's card system related, maybe it's not, but probably it is, I would say. But whatever you come up with, what's your secret sauce?
Listen up, it's the secret sauce.
Oh gosh. You did put me on the spot because we talked about a lot. I would say, or the secret sauce, pick one. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about, value. All right. Okay. So I think, whatever you can do to add value and convenience to your stores is huge. And this isn't even card system related. I'll tell you something that we do in our stores we hate them, but we love them at the same time. We put electric sliding doors in every one of our stores. Now, let me tell you something about electric sliding doors. If you don't have one in your store, they're awful. They break regularly. They're the worst service. They're expensive. They cost a fortune. I want to tell you that if you go to your store on a busy Saturday and you've got a mom with a couple of kids hanging onto the pockets of their jeans and they got a basket of laundry on the other hip, to try to watch them go in and pull the door handle on a laundry if there's no attendant or not attendant available, but have that door just swing wide open and they just walk in the store. That's thinking beyond just the inside of the store, but thinking about the customer that's inside of it and your typical customer, and it really comes down to it. There's a value proposition. There's a convenience proposition that I think we underestimate. And we can do tons of things with the payment system, but that is something that is just inherently, I would imagine that someone that goes through that, it's like, I'm going to that store because I can't get in the door with my 3-year-old and my 6-year-old if I have to swing this open and carry this basket of laundry. So, anything you can do like that to add convenience, and certainly payment systems helps with that is all part of the secret sauce. And there's no one piece. There's lots of examples like that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, that's kind of been one of the big themes of this whole, interview, right? Is ways to add value and thinking about your customer. It goes right back to what you were saying earlier about don't forget, keep your customer in mind, without the guy who's putting the quarter in your machine or the lady, you don't have a business.
None of this matters.
Right?
None of this matters.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. So, I think that goes right in line. And I think it's, a perspective that's easy to get lost when we're in the weeds of things, or maybe we've gotten in the rut, those kinds of things. And I would say too, part of that is being in communication with your customers and just every now and then just check in with them when you're at the store. You have a quick conversation like, hey, ask them how they're doing, how the family's doing, how it's going and all that. And say, hey, how's your experience been here lately? Is there anything I can do to improve it? And hearing from them, and not saying that you necessarily have to do everything they say or they want you to do, but starting to get their perspective, because like you said, they're what matters most. So even though I put you on the spot, I would say those 50 years of collective experience have really shined in the secrets. Just kidding. Well, you did so well. I'm going to put you on the spot again. We have a section called Pro Tips.
Pro Tips.
Okay.
Pro Tips is typically it's more for new owner, people trying to buy their first laundromat. And maybe you want to address that and give a tip for that. Or maybe you want to give a pro tip for somebody maybe who is thinking about putting a card system in for the first time in their store, and maybe a tip to help them get started in the right direction with the card system. So go either way that you want to go. Sure.
I think, I guess because that's where my focus is. We talk about investors and considering payment options. I would say now more than any, it can be, it's like paralysis by analysis. There's so many options and they're all very different. So it can be a bit challenging to determine what's the right thing for me and what should I do in my store or my demographic. I think that nothing, and this is old fashioned as well, but nothing does better than going for referrals. And what I mean by that is talk to people. The CLA is a good forum. I'm sure, you've got a bunch of customers, or I say investors and store owners that you have talked to over the years that you could refer people to that have used various technology. You have to talk to people and find out what they like, what they don't like. And that will guide you towards the products that fit yourself, your needs the best. And so, it's simple, but the reality is that people so often just take something they see an ad for and it's like, oh, that's what I want. That's it. Or it's the shiny new marble in the box. They say, oh, I'm going to do that. But then they don't take a look and talk to people and find out, well, how long has that marble been around? How that marble's been there for a year, and that marble might not be there a year later. And, I think when you talk to people who've been doing this a while and have had success with whatever it is that they invested in, just paints so much more confidence in an investor that's trying to figure out, what should I do from a payment perspective? Don't always be attracted to the shiny objects every time. Not that you shouldn't pay attention to them. I think that there's a lot of good there, but laundromats stick around for a while. You know what I mean? Typical laundromats last a long time. And so when you make an investment in a payment system, is that solution going to be there in 5 years when you need them still? Do they have a sustainable business model that's going to make sure that they can take care of you and your needs when that time comes? So, that's, and I think the best way to get confidence that is to talk to people. And, that's the pro tip for buying a card system.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really great pro tip, because I think a lot of people, I think you're right. A lot of people will just see an ad and say, oh, you know what? That seems like a great fit. And they'll just jump on it. Maybe it'll work out. Maybe it won't. There's another contingent who will do some research and figure out which one fits best. But I think a lot of things that or a lot of times what gets overlooked is that whole, hey, are they going to be around long term? Are they going to be able to support you? What kind of support do they have?
Right.
Are they actively updating it? Are they actively making it better? What kind of communication is there between, me as an owner and them as a software developer and hardware developer that's, creating a product that's supposed to help my business. Those are questions I think get overlooked a lot, and we get tied up in the features a lot too. So that's why I think talking with other owners who are utilizing the different systems comes in handy, because they'll know the features, but they'll have the perspective of, okay, well, how is this company to work with? How's the support when things go wrong? Those kinds of things. So I think that's awesome pro tips, not just for buying a card system, but
for anything.
Buying that's a great pro tip for anybody buying their first laundromat, right? Like, is this going to be a good investment for you? Maybe or maybe not. The way you find out is, do some research, listen to the podcast, read blog posts, go to YouTube, whatever. But probably even more importantly than that is start talking to other owners and see what life is like, see what it's like to own laundromats. So
I think that's what's great about, a forum like this, which, you're having this conversation and hopefully it draws people to just to see what's there. But people who are interested in the business and interested in purchase is that it's not such a big industry that you can't reach out to that person individually. It's not like there's some, magic fence that you can't get over. You just reach out. If you want to call Jordan, call Jordan. You want to call Steve. And the people that are participating in these events and participating in these things, they're all very reachable. And it's one of the things I like about our industry is that they're all people, and they're just small business owners. And most of them are actually proud of their success. I think most people are, and they're actually okay with sharing what made them successful. And that's really what people are interested in. They want to make sure that whatever they invest in, it is expensive in a lot of cases, but if I'm going to do it, is it going to work? Is it going to be what I wanted? Is it going to help me? And the only way you're going to get that kind of confidence is to talk to people who've been through it already.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that ends, like if you're buying a card system or you're buying a store, I don't think it ends after you pull the trigger on that.
Correct.
Because like you mentioned earlier, like things are changing. Things are, we need to keep adapting, keep evolving, and keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on. And so after you buy your store, after you buy your card system, keep interacting with people. That's why, we encourage people to interact on forums like the CLA forum or the Laundromat Resource Forum. That's why we encourage, people to network with each other in whatever capacity that, that is because when we kind of help each other, we all do better. right?
Sure.
Like that's that abundance mindset of, there's plenty to go around. We can all have success. It doesn't have to be at the expense of anyone else. And
Right, exactly.
And that's a big mindset. And I think it's particularly true in our industry. Like, however your laundromats do have zero impact on mine, right?
Right.
Zero.
Yeah,
and I would argue in mine, even the laundromat a mile down the road is going to have zero impact on my laundromat.
Absolutely.
And so there's, that's, I love that pro tip all the way around. And you're just showing your wisdom.
Yeah, right.
so much wisdom. But seriously, man, this has been really, really good. I want to make sure I don't want to leave. If you have anything else that you want to share about yourself, about any advice you want to give, or about your product, I want you to be able to share a little bit about that. If you have anything else you want to share.
Yeah, the only thing that I want to make sure that is communicated well, I think, and is that we talk about these solutions in these payment systems, and obviously that's my focus. But there's generally a lot of talk about the expense of them. You know what I mean? And it's kind of hard to hide, frankly, from the fact that these are some of these products are pretty expensive. But I think that what's important for people not to immediately run away with that is to realize that. Why are they expensive? And at the end of the day, does it matter how much it costs as long as it returns? So now we're maybe shifting slightly away from the customer perspective, but now talking about owner investors and, owning a laundromat. I mean, it's a high capital upfront expense, right? I mean, you put all your money upfront on it and then you try to get your return over time. And frankly, that's how payment systems are. The good news is that a lot of these systems have amazing returns, and their return on investments are usually very fast. And that's another thing that referral tip that we talked about will help you, because I can tell you how great the ROI is, but it's better if Jordan, store owner, tells you, because he's had it, he's experienced it. I've experienced it, but I'm biased. Talk to people who have payment systems and talk about how quickly they think the investment paid for itself. And I think that just like any investment, if you had high confidence that it was going to return for you, it didn't matter what it costs, you do it, you would invest in it. So, these solutions are very powerful. They add value in a lot of ways that we've talked about. They do require an investment. But the return is amazing at the same time. So, that's something that has happened in my industry, is just a perception issue, because sometimes people can't look past the quote. They don't realize that there's a reason, for these things. So if anything, I would say that would be something to add on to the referral side. Talk to people who've been through it. They've spent the money that you're being proposed. If you're looking at a quote right now, there's a reason why they bought 3 and 4 and 5, in some cases 20 of them, over the course of their laundry career. And it's not because they like me. I think it's because they like the return on investment. So that'd be one thing I think is important to kind of leave people with.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I get asked a lot, especially for people, this is semi-related, but especially for people in some of the larger markets, the LAs, the San Franciscos, the New Yorks, how much is too much to pay for rent? And I always say, well, it really depends. I wouldn't mind spending $10,000 or $12,000 a month for rent if my business was making $60,000, $70,000 a month. That's an okay amount.
Does it really matter? Right.
It's not about the hard number. It's about what kind of return and what kind of business can you generate utilizing that resource that you're investing in. And in that case, I'd be investing in a space, via rent, in order to operate my business. But if I'm investing whatever the amount is, the hard number, it feels a little intimidating, right? $10,000 a month is crazy. I mean, that is a lot for rent, right? But on the other hand, if it's going to let you net $30,000 a month, would you pay 10 grand to get 30,000 a month?
All day long.
Right. So you got to look at it from that perspective and shift a little bit from that hard number cost of how much is it going to cost me, to invest back into my business, and more on that ROI, that like you were talking about. So I think, and that's a little bit of a mindset shift.
It is,
right? That it can be tough to make that shift.
Yeah. We all go through that. We all go through that when we're looking at stuff. We all kind of sometimes sit back and be like, oh, that looks tough. But then if you analyze it and you say, but I'm going to make how much? Okay. It just softens the blow. And I think to get the confidence there, you got to talk to people, hearing it from the guy that's trying to get you to buy it. It's going to not be as, not as powerful as if, Jordan, who's got multiple stores and says, hey, this is great, and this is what it did. We've had multiple experiences like that. It just paints so much confidence, and it really softens the idea the investment's worth it. And maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you talk to somebody that says, no, it wasn't good, but at least you learn. But I'm pretty confident you'll see people who actually read into it find that it's actually a pretty good investment. We wouldn't be around for 20 years if it wasn't, but there's the attraction of all the payment system options are out there are great definers of the fact that we're doing something right. You know what I mean? So it's important.
Yeah. And I found, especially for, not to belabor this point, but especially for new business owners, for the majority of us, when we spend money, we're spending money on things that they're not going to generate money for us. Right. So we're buying a TV, or we're buying a car, or we're buying even a house.
Sure.
Right? That's not really generating money for us. So when you spend money, the money is gone. Right.
Right.
So shifting that mentality to investing money, because that's what you're doing when you're buying a card system, or you're paying rent, or whatever your expense is for your business, as long as it's a good one, right?
Yeah.
the intent should be that it's an investment. You're not buying money, and once you spend it, it's gone. You're spending it in order to generate more back, right? And so that's the mindset shift that I see 100%. A lot of new business owners need to make. So I think that's really good. Steve, this has been incredible. Seriously, I know I joked a lot about the years of wisdom and stuff, but seriously, there was a lot of really, really just quality stuff in here for both, experienced owners and new owners alike, and just a lot of really good perspective that I think will benefit a lot of owners listening to this. So I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that, taking your time. It's a Friday right now, so you should be, kicking your feet up, but you're here working hard for us. I like that.
That's right.
I got one more question for you.
Okay.
If people want to either contact you and ask you questions about your own experience as an owner or CLA or anything like that, or B, if they want more information about your card system that you offer, or maybe even distribution, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you to ask you those questions?
Yeah, I think, as far as the payment systems are concerned, if you're looking to learn more about those opportunities, the website's the best, www.laundrycard.com. And, lots of opportunities to reach out to us through the website. I get all of the feedback that goes through those. So when you fill out a form saying I'm interested, it all comes to me and our sales team. So, we're a small company, and it's easy to get a hold of us. So those are some of the easiest ways to go through it. We've been having this conversation for a long time with a lot of people, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you about it as well. Appreciate you including me in this in your show, and I'm excited to see you do more.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes for anybody listening. If you're on YouTube watching, it'll be down in the description below. So make sure you check that out and reach out to Steve, get some more information. I'm sure he can connect you with some referrals too, if you're interested in that card system. I'm sure he can connect you up with some people who have utilized it, and you can get their perspective on it too, and see what kind of investment it might be for your business. So Steve, thank you again. I really, really appreciate it, and looking forward to staying in touch and hearing how things are going, for your businesses, but also, for the card system. I know, any of these, technology-based, systems, they're going to just continue to evolve as you get input from your customers, and as things change in the industry and in our culture, as a whole. So we'll have to have you back on down the line to see how things have been evolving and get your more than 50 years worth of wisdom at that point in time.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you. It's been great.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right.
All right. I hope you really enjoyed that interview with Steve. It was, man, I was so excited after this interview. It was so good. I took a lot of stuff from this, wrote it down, plan on putting it into practice. And as you may or may not know, every episode, I encourage you to pick one thing and put it into practice this week, because action is what paves the way to success. You got to be taking action. If you just sit here and listen to these amazing interviews, absorb all this knowledge, but don't put anything you learn into action, it's not going to help you achieve your goals. You got to take the action to get to where you're trying to go. All right. So for me, I wanted to quickly share the one thing that I am it really stood out to me, and I'm going to put it into action this week is I wrote down this quote. He said, if you can't execute on the customer's needs, you're going to struggle. If you can't execute on the customer's needs, you're going to struggle. So I'm on a fact-finding mission to find out what needs my customers have that I'm not meeting and try to remedy those things. So I'm going to go on an information gathering quest in my laundromats, trying to figure out if there are needs that I'm not meeting or what needs I can meet better for my customers. And that, I think, will improve my business, not only with my current customers, but hopefully will attract some new customers also. So what about you? What action are you putting into practice this week? I'd love to hear about it on the forums, laundromatresource.com/forums. Go to the Laundromat forum and let us know, what action are you putting in this week? Can't wait to read about it. See you guys on the forums. And if not there, then I will see you next week on the Laundromat Resource Podcast. This is Jordan. Peace.